Hi everyone, hope you're all well. So, my last video did way better than I expected, and it was so amazing to see how many of you are equally excited to explore a region based on Ireland. So I just want to quickly say a couple of things. First is, I really want to thank you for the mass encouragement for this project. I know it'll take me a while to get through, but I'll do my best to make it fun and engaging as possible, so Gurv Magwiv. Second is that, even though I am Irish and all that, I don't want people to think that I'm acting like I know absolutely everything about all the myths and folklore, or even the language. My grasp of Irish is about as good as any other person's who hasn't done it in school. I'm gonna get some stuff wrong for sure, and this is where I'd love for Irish viewers and people who've studied the culture to pipe in when they feel they need to. Also, just a note for all the people who are worried about their hometown or county not being in the map. This is only based on Ireland, it's not actually Ireland. So don't worry, your place isn't going to be real there anyway. So yeah, in the end, this is all just a bit of fun and a good excuse to learn about new things. Anyway, I won't dilly-dally, let's meet the Pokemon of Balladree's Route 1. So as we all probably know, the Route 1 Pokedex fillers usually follow the same format of bird, bug and rodent. I'll do things a little differently this time, and I'll explain the concepts as I introduce the Pokemon, so do let me know if you prefer it that way or if I should stick to keeping the explanations to the end. Our first encounter is Wobbin, the little bird Pokemon. So obviously it's based on the robin, which is often called the gardener's friend, as they do like to hang around to see if they can grab any worms or anything from upturned soil that a gardener might leave. They're generally quite friendly as birds go, and they're often associated with Christmas and holly. Because of this, as well as the gardening nickname, I thought a secondary grass typing would be appropriate, but I wasn't initially sure how to incorporate that into the design. As I was drawing Wobbin, however, I realised he accidentally looked like a Christmas pudding, which usually has a sprig of holly poked into the top, and I thought, that's how. Sometimes a design will pull itself together even if you don't know how to do it yourself, and personally I think Wobbin ended up as one of the cutest designs overall. So here it is, flying and grass type. Its Pokedex entry goes as follows. Wobbin are extremely curious, and they love to watch both humans and other Pokemon in their daily activities. For the lucky person, a Wobbin might even come close to mimic what they're doing, but very rarely would they be tame enough to interact directly. They're awkward Pokemon, as their rotund shape makes it difficult for them to both fly or walk. Their stubby legs don't bend, forcing them to wobble as they move, but they are strong enough for Wobbin to hop seemingly forever. It evolves into Quillin, the festive Pokemon, flying and grass type. Quillin's name comes from the Irish for holly, Quillin, which luckily for me also sounds like quill, which makes me think of writing quills and therefore literature. Quillin's friendly nature make them very popular, especially around festive holidays when their prickly feathers and berries are favoured to make wreaths and decorations. Because of their affectionate personalities and puffed red chests, they've also become symbols of love and cheer. At first I was going to leave it at the first evolution, because I had misremembered a connection to the Irish author and poet Oscar Wilde, and I thought he'd written about a robin and a rose, but it was actually a nightingale. In my mind I'd remembered it as being a story about how the robin got its red chest, but whoops, my mistake. So to correct that error, that meant that I had to evolve Quillin again. I'll keep it brief, but essentially the story goes how a nightingale felt sorry for this loved up fella, lamenting the fact that he didn't have a red rose to give the woman he was into. The nightingale asked a rose bush in the garden to produce a red rose in exchange for its most beautiful song, but the bush replied that the winter had killed its ability to make any. The nightingale pleads for one rose, and the bush decides that the only way is for the bird to plunge a thorn into its heart while it sings through the night, and its blood would create the red rose. To this the nightingale agrees, concluding that love is greater than life, and that the heart of man is greater than a bird's, wishing that the man in question embodies the love that the nightingale admires so much. So that night the nightingale throws itself onto the thorn, the bush takes its blood, and a beautiful rose is grown by the morning, by which the nightingale is dead on the ground. The man is overjoyed at the rose, picks it and offers it to the woman he loves, who spurns him and says jewels are more valuable, to which he angrily stamps on the rose and comments on how stupid love is. The end. Even though I hadn't originally planned for Quillamend to ever be a part of this evolution line, I'm really glad I had the chance to revise everything, though it did take me a long time to settle on the design that made sense. Initially I'd looked into using mistletoe as the theme, since it also has connections to Christmas as well as love, like kissing under the mistletoe. And then to build a concept around druids, to whom mistletoe was sacred as well. But it just kept looking boring and it just didn't look like Quillin's evolution. I eventually felt like that meme,
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
so I slept on it and the next morning was like, oh my god, I'm such a dope. Why don't I actually just use the rose? The holly can evolve into the thorns and the rose itself can represent the red chest. Why did I not think of that? Let me do that right now. So even though I'm not 100% on this design, I was definitely ready to move on from drawing birds. So now, let's meet Quillament, the selfless Pokemon, flying and grass type. Quillamend are known for their altruism, often throwing themselves into danger to shield those they love. Because of this, they always show up in Baladrian literature as symbols of self-sacrifice, often inspiring the literary minds of balladry in tales of romance and or tragedy. Ironically, they are physically unable to give or receive any affection, as their thorns would tear through their loved ones as a result. Maybe this and what I mentioned earlier will give you an idea of who and what one of the gym leaders will be based on. Okay, enough about these birds. They've already taken up too much time. Let's look at the rodents. Murphimus is really straightforward to explain. Its name just comes from Murphy, which is the most common surname in Ireland, and mus, which is Latin for mouse. That's it. Obviously, Murphy has its own meaning, coming from O Murchada, or Murcha. There are some other older versions, but I'm not going to go into all of them. Apparently it also means sea battler, but I'm just gonna ignore that. This Pokemon line was one of the first ones I actually drew, even before the starters, and I just think it came out so cute. Its Pokedex entry goes, Murphimus, the tiny mouse Pokemon, normal type. These sweet little Pokemon are extremely common. It's nearly impossible to find a place in balladry without them. Their curiosity can lead them into trouble, however, as they make their nests inside the homes of others, where they cheekily stick their noses into business that isn't theirs. Trainers often have issues training Murphimus, as they have a tendency to wander off and snoop elsewhere. They evolve into Murdarig, the rascal Pokemon, normal and fire type. The name still borrows from Murphy and the Irish for red, Darrig. This Pokemon is also based on the Far Darrig, or the Red Man, which I actually didn't know about until I was researching for this Pokemon. Apparently they're mischievous fairies dressed in red coats that have rat-like features and take joy in playing gruesome pranks on people. I thought that adding the fire typing would be appropriate, as rats can apparently use their tails to regulate their temperature, and with all the red theming going on, it just fit. So Murdarig's Pokedex entry reads, Murdarig love to play pranks on others, both human and Pokemon alike. Despite their obnoxious natures, they're not actually malicious at all and enjoy good humour. If a joke isn't well received, however, they'll sulk for a couple of days. Using their powerful tails to thermodynamically regulate their temperature, they can concentrate their body heat to produce fire. God, if you can hear all of the birds screeching outside, I'm really sorry about that. Unfortunately, due to the cold and damp climate of balladry, they nearly constantly keep their tails alight, which leads to many house fires if they live wild within them. Now we're on to the regional bug type. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to make a bumblebee Pokemon. They're just so adorable. They're these chubby little bugs, and I always thought it was a shame that there wasn't already something like them in the games. Yes, I know there are bee Pokemon, but not specifically bumblebees, and they're such gorgeous little creatures that I had to include them in the Pokedex. So our first in line is Bumbini, the larva Pokemon, bug type. Born underground, Bumbini are not often seen in the wild. Sometimes their curiosity will inspire them to poke their head out of the nest, but they'd rather spend all their time eating the honey that their mother makes in comfort. Being messy eaters, they're nearly always sticky from the honey they devour, so any unwitting Bumbini who venture out will often become a soft and sweet treat for any passing birds. Bumbini evolves into Honeybuzz, the tipsy Pokemon, also a pure bug type. I started thinking about how honey can be used to make mead, which then made me think of the concept of alcohol in general, which, stereotype or not, the Irish are pretty well known for. It made me start thinking about how this Pokemon could eventually become a part of that process, tying the idea of fermentation to it as a natural part of its biology. The name comes from honey and buzz, both in the sound that bees make but also in feeling buzzed, like from experiencing the effects of alcohol. The Pokedex entry goes, Honeybuzz have climbed into the nectar pots that their mothers painstakingly put together as food reserves, only to gorge on everything themselves. The pots then fuse with them as a kind of pupal shell. Their bodies ferment the sugars in the honey, so this Pokemon is constantly in a jolly state, rocking back and forth. Once they can't keep any sense of balance anymore, they'll tip over and break their pot. This means they're now ready to evolve. Honeybuzz then evolves into Boozlebee, the fermentation Pokemon, bug and fairy type. I added the fairy typing since they often have some relation to food, and even though that's not a concept I want to repeat much in future fairy designs, I thought at the very least it actually works in Boozlebee's favour. It's a type combination I like a lot, and it's a bit more interesting than just making him bug and flying. His Pokedex entry goes as follows. For much of balladry's history, Boozlebee have been a valuable and integral partner to the production of alcohol. Their sweetened saliva is used as the catalyst for all sorts of fermentation processes, and they have become the proud emblems of the region's primary export. Any business that includes at least one Boozlebee will be able to create a drink of exceptional quality. Due to its permanent state of inebriation, this Pokemon flies in erratic patterns, confusing enemies and making it difficult to land a hit. They're often considered one of the most nonsensical but good-natured Pokemon in the region. So, those are our regional bird, rodent and bug. But there's one more guy I want to show, and whether he'd be an early catch or not doesn't really matter. He's just one of my favourite designs so far. I don't have much to add about the design really, he's just a magpie, but I just really wanted to draw that oversized eye and the big smirk. The idea would be that more of them makes them more powerful, which is based on an old magpie rhyme, which I don't know how widespread it is, but it goes like 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, etc. The number of magpies you see either at once or throughout the day is supposed to influence what happens to you, so I just thought that it was a neat little way to tie in the psychic typing. This is Snagpie, the pilfering Pokemon, dark and psychic type. These Pokemon have a sour reputation, with their thieving nature and presence being an omen of bad luck. It seems that their psychic powers amplify the more of them there are, and they're able to collectively influence the futures of hapless victims who cross their path. Those unlucky few who come across 13 Snagpie are destined for a life of misery, as it's said that such a number invites the devil to curse them. Oh, yeah, there he goes. The beads they wear are often stolen from unguarded trinket boxes, and they use them to magnify their psychic abilities in battle. They have a vicious nature, cackling loudly at their fallen foes. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the concept of a gimmick. This is something that for me has never really felt necessary. I mean, I enjoyed them as I played through the games, but I never felt like they were super integral to making them more fun. I never missed them whenever I replay older games. So I don't have or want a battle gimmick really. Mine is really just more catered to something I would personally like, and it has to do with shinies. So what I'd love to see is, I'm going to call them hue change shinies. This would mean that for each colour on a shiny's palette, there would be a range within which those colours could shift. Maybe it would be a range of 5 colours to keep it simple but still varied. Each part of the Pokemon would be randomised to whatever colours were within those ranges. I feel like this would make shinies even more unique to the player. They wouldn't stray far from their original colours, but there'd be enough variety to make finding one truly unique and special. That's an idea I like a lot. I was nearly going to say that regular Pokemon colours could do the same, but the point of a shiny is already that it's a different colour and rare, so to me it makes more sense to really amp up that aspect. And there we go. Let me know your thoughts and if you'd like to add any of these guys to your team. I'll see you in the next update. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!